Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between the Lizardmen led by Jabba the Hutt and Norsca, who's going to be led by Throg the Troll King. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. Here in the front line, it's pretty much going to be all Temple Guard. So Johnson and I had played a couple matches. We were just kind of discussing the matchup. How can you really handle Norska, the Premier Warriors, some of the Marauder champions in the front line? And I kind of figured that Temple Guard might be a decent option because number one, they're going to do pretty well against champions. They have decent armor piercing. And if they do have to fight Famir, I also feel like they have a good matchup there. On top of that, though, I mean, Marauder champions are going to trade okay with Temple Guard, and if they do bring Marauder champions with great weapons, the Temple Guard, are a halberd unit at their core, so they're not going to trade as effectively as a great weapon unit. So I decided to mix in a couple KROXIGORs. So we got some Florida influence in here, and I figured that the KROXIGORs, relatively mobile, 46 speed, could get in there with their spanking paddles and give the business to some of the champions. They will lose horribly to Famir, of course. Famir have anti-large and are just kind of more designed for fighting other monsters, but the KROXIGORs also can just stack on top of the Temple Guard, so maybe it'll work. We'll find out. We do also have Lord Mazda Bundy here in the back. He does have Arcane Unforging, Apotheosis, and Curse of the Midnight Wind, Banishment, Ruination of Cities, all that kind of good stuff. Double Skink Chief up in the sky to just go after the casters and, shoot darts into Throg's neck. Always a good time for him. And then we also have a ton of skinks. So a pretty elite army here in the center, but we were actually able to still go super wide. So we do have 3 skink cohorts on this side and 3 on this side as well. So basically just going to be trying to distract the wolves, wrap up and around, go after the javelins, and just kind of swarm my opponent's army. So for the forces of Norsca, it's going to be pretty elite in the front line, Marauder champions. So it's 2 and 2. 2 Marauders with champs with great weapons, 2 with these swords and shields. He does also have a Shaman Sorcerer with the Lore Metal, so he does have the Bombardment, the Plague of Rust, and Transmutation of Lead. For his Lord, he does have Throg, pretty much the best choice here. He's going to be able to smack on those KROXIGORs if he wants to get on Jabba. Jabba is a large, thick boy, so the anti-large bonus will help against Mazda Bundy. He's got 2 Norscan Ice Wolves, a very good choice for chasing down skinks. If I had like chameleons or things like that, these guys just annihilate them. Pretty scary for sure. And he does have 2 groups of Famirs with great weapons. Also a very solid choice, pretty standard against the dinosaurs. Will be a good answer against the KROXIGORs. A couple groups of Javelins in the back. I think in total he has 2 of the Marauder Hunter Javelins. And a lot of people have asked me, like, why don't you go with the throwing axes in this matchup? Well, the Javelins are just, the range is so valuable, and they have that bonus for its large. It really kind of makes up for the lack of AP they have. And they do a really good job at melting pretty much any of the Dino Lords. So really, really like that pick quite a bit. And that's it. He does have a couple of Norscan Ice Wolves on the far side, and I think that's going to be it, boys. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. So John Ton coming over balls deep with the Norscan Ice Wolves. They're going to be swarming in, and check out the damage on this charge. So the Wolves charge in, and Norscan Ice Wolves are kind of like monstrous units, so they kind of work like Cav in a way with their mass. And they just get in there and give the dirty business to my skinks. I was so surprised at the damage. I was like, oh my goodness, that was a ton of damage on those guys. So I bring in the other group of skinks. I'm like, well, we're about to find out how many skink cohorts it's going to take out those Norscan Ice Wolves. The rest of the engagement is kind of just at a standstill. The Temple Guard are just getting ready to meet the Norscan hordes. And it looks like he is standing over some of the Famir with great weapons to start clubbing some of my poor little skinks. So it's going to be a bit of a mismatch here. But he's sending a lot of resources, and I'm going to respond in kind. I do have some Temple Guard peeled off who are going to run over there and help out. The 2 Skink Chiefs providing some Overwatch fire, and the rest of the army is going to be taking a relatively square engagement. So Temple Guard and KROXIGOR is going to be pushing forward. On the far side, I took way too wide of a route, so I kind of did a shift path and forgot about them, but I should have just ran up and kind of, tried to swamp some of these guys. But at the very least, skinks are pretty quick. What do they have? 46 speed, so they should be able to get up and around. So the mainline fight is just about to be underway. The KROXIGORs are just bullying in there, but I did see the Famir, so I was like, I'm going to pull back a little bit and switch them onto the champs. And the skinks are holding firm, actually fighting back against the Ice Wolves, and now the Temple Guard have piled in as well. So that's going to give me the much needed anti-large against those Famir warriors. And the KROXIGORs have come with their spanking paddles, and they're going to start spanking some of these filthy Norsemen. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Marauder Champion taking a little bit of work. Looks like a Plague of Rust going down on my Temple Guard to make his champs a little bit more effective. The Temple Guard here have engaged with the standard Marauders, which is going to be a pretty one-sided affair. You can see these angry lizards doing some work. We've got some spanking paddles mixed in there. The really essential thing with the KROXIGORs is just to make sure they're not fighting Throg, or they're not fighting against the Famir with great weapons. So a little bit sloppy here in the beginning. Granted, Throg is pretty quick. You can't really get away from him at all times. So the KROXIGORs do take some initial damage from Throg, so you can see I'm going to be pulling them back, regrouping all of my KROXIGORs. Over here, these Temple Guard holding pretty well against some Marauder champs, doing a pretty solid job. A nice bombardment from Johnson there. He's going to be tagging my Temple Guard with the Plague of Rust as well, so he's definitely swarming. But the skinks are still pressuring. I mean, they did some damage to the hounds, but they're still annoying. They're occupying these guys. They're just getting around. And the other group, the hordes of hell, are pushing up and around. So you can see this is so many skinks. These bad boys are going to be coming and hopefully engaging on the Marauder Hunters. And Jabba the Hutt has engaged as well. So this is like the ideal situation. well, not Jabba taking spears to the face, but having the KROXIGORs stacked on top of the Temple Guard, you pretty much have answers for everything here, right? The Temple Guard are pretty good against Throg, and the KROXIGORs are going to lay a spanking on the champions. But Throg is able to fend me off a little bit. I do get a nice apotheosis topping them off, and over here I get a banishment as well. So the banishment does go through the champs, but also tears up my Temple Guard, but it was kind of a lost fight there anyways. So the Skink's still disrupting the back line. A lot of his resources are being spent to kind of hunt here. I do decide to switch onto the Shaman Sorcerer with my 2 Skinks, and then an Arcane Unforging will be going down shortly, but I'm a little bit out of range. Jabba isn't the fastest of fellows. Over here, the charge wasn't as bad. I mean, that charge did almost nothing. I was surprised. So those Norscan Ice Wolves just kind of absorbing the initial force of my Skink cohorts, but at this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to rear charge here. Going to trigger a penalty. Norse have okay leadership, but not the best. So the Skink hordes just swarming in from the shadows. The Famir, this is great. If Famir are having to fight Skinks and just like dealing with these little weasels, which they're not designed to fight, that is 100% okay with me, that they're not in the front line dealing with like the, you know, the more elite troops like the Temple Guard as well as my KROXIGORs. So the Skinks just kind of swarming in, pushing, trying to get on the Javelins. And on that same note, the Javelins aren't able to sit. The Javelins could easily tear apart the KROXIGORs if they just kind of were able to sit and park and just, you know, even though KROXIGORs are armored, the Javelins still hit really, really hard. So the fact that I'm able to swarm them with Skinks and just keep them busy is very, very solid here. So this is all Skink cohorts back here. I mean, and there are a lot of Norscan resources. There's Ice Wolves. There's a couple of Famir back there as well. You can see Throg is even fighting Skink cohorts, which is great. And right here, Jabba the Hutt is going to be popping shield to the old ones, buffing up the front line, the leadership. Magic resist doesn't really help too much, although I think Famir do magic damage. So yeah, because it does help against Famir, which is pretty cool. Temple Guard are able to break through. They're going to be pushing back towards Throg right now. Throg definitely in a little bit of trouble. This is a lot of Temple Guard here, and the only thing he has supporting him really are the Famir, and Famir get hard countered by the Temple Guard pretty effectively. So we're pushing in there. Famir is still pretty healthy. They do have 12 models. We are able to kill the caster, so the Skink Chiefs were able to just go full-on Mission Impossible with the assistance of the Arcane Unforging of Jabba the Hutt, and we're able to burn down the caster. In the back, Ruination of Cities is just going to be tearing through the formation. You can see some of these Javelins just like, oh man, seeing all their friends just like get ripped up right here must have been pretty brutal, but pretty good damage nonetheless. Javelins are very low. They've been obstructed and relatively inefficient throughout the course of the game. So we're able to keep swarming. The Skink Chiefs are in good health. Throg, however, is going to be going after Mazda Money, so the bounce power is a little bit in my favor, but this is something that could get him back in the game. Mazda Money is very, very squishy. Well, I guess he's relatively squishy. Throg does have fight or die, but you can see the angry Gators are coming in hard, so the Gators just bull rushing, and yes, they're not like as good of anti-large specialists as the Famir, but there's still a lot of angry alligators there with their spanking clubs, and they can definitely do some pretty good work against Throg. So they're going to be pushing in. Throg's going to have to retreat here. Some of the Marauder champions are just outnumbered by the Temple Guard, and it looks like there's going to be something going down on Throg. I'm not sure what it is because his caster's dead. It was an Arcane Unforging. So Arcane Unforging does pretty good damage. It's kind of similar to like Spirit Leech. So at this point, the Temple Guard are just kind of piling in, and we do have Throg heavily surrounded. So if he does break, I can just chase him off the battlefield using, let's say, a Skink Chief or any number of other resources. He does have a lot of Famir warriors that are actually pretty healthy, and his Javelins are somewhat online, but it looks like there's actually a lone Skink cohort back here. Oh, the rest of them are like over here. I guess one got like stuck fighting. He's getting some pretty good Overwatch fire, but the bounce power is kind of falling away from him here. That's like that corn song falling away. Anyway, sorry, totally like my brain just went in a different direction. But Throg is being poked by the darts, definitely not having a good time. And the Temple Guard and KROXIGORs are just kind of taking these guys to Pound Town. You can see the Norscan doggos are just getting chopped up by the lizards, and the Famir warriors with Grey Elfins are eventually just going to get swarmed by the anti-large armor piercing and the armor piercing of the KROXIGORs. I mean, those spanking paddles hurt, and from there we're going to call the game. So that's going to be it. Victory for the Lizards. So it's definitely a hard matchup, I think, for the Lizardmen. But again, I think a lot of people haven't experimented too much with like just like heavy infantry plus like the KROXIGORs. They didn't do like a ton of damage, but nonetheless, like they're a very, very solid answer to this particular build. Yes, Norske could bring a build that would just absolutely smash this Lizardman build, but what you're seeing over here, Johnson and I were trying to like use the most like common like Norscan build, like something that you would see, and this is a solid one. Like champions beat Saurus. Marauder champs are pretty good against the Temple Guard. Javelins are good against the big dinos as well as Skink Chiefs. But these guys were just so occupied. Like, had those Javelins been able to be online and just could have been sitting and throwing their spears at the Skink Chiefs and just throwing their spears at the KROXIGORs, that would have been a very different game. Like, these Marauder Hunters with Javelins absolutely melt Skink Chiefs. Like, it is brutal for sure. Famirs are just a great choice. I mean, they smash KROXIGORs. They provide armor sundering to your lower tier infantry, like your Marauder champions. They're just really, really good. But I think they were caught up in the back line dealing with Skinks too much. Granted, he kind of needed to, or else he would have lost his Javelins because I had so much stuff swarming that back line. But yeah, his build was definitely solid. Those Norscan hounds, just absolute terrors in the night. I mean, they were just ravaging the Skinks. Like, that first charge, that was like a group of Reichsguard charging in there, that damage it did. I don't know if it was like the slope or the hill that it was on, but it was insane. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good like anti-Norske build. I mean, I think if someone knows it's coming, they can easily counter it just by going super wide and bringing like a ton of infantry to shut down your skinks. But most of the builds are going to go relatively heavy with Throg and Tremere with Great Weapon. So I think it's something that you can try out and have relative success with. Skink Chief's very good for taking out enemy casters with Arcane and Forging, and Jabba the Hutt just a solid support hero for sure. So anyways, very well played. My opponent, John Ton, we actually played 3 games, so there's going to be a couple. There'll be this one, and then the other 2 will actually be cast as a 2-for-1. So you guys will be seeing those come up. Those other games were just super close and good. You guys are in for a treat for sure. So very well played to John Ton of Total Brohammer. Make sure to go check out his channel. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Jabba the Hutt game, and we will see you guys next time.